Maybe I should do it in the style of the more slowing down and enjoy the port in front of the fireplace.
Okay.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Hi, wine lovers. Welcome to another episode of Our Poor Decisions.
In today's episode, kind of feels like we're taking a step back into the time of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol.
Well, you're right, B. I don't think you can classify port as either trendy or modern.
So why are we doing this again?
Because I love port. And I think it's easy for people to navigate around some mediocre port and find some great port without breaking the bank.
So you think port is misunderstood?
I think great port is misunderstood. I think it gets confused with mass-produced, sappy, sweet junk port. And if junk port is the first and only port you've ever had, well, you're missing out on some great wine.
Well, I'm willing to give it a try, and who knows, maybe I'll end up liking port just as much as you do.
Port, like many other wines, are both a type of wine and specific to a region. Whereas port-style wines can be made anywhere, port itself comes from the Douro Valley in Portugal and gets its name from the city of Porto, also called O Porto, where traditionally all the port wines were stored and shipped from. There are three sub-regions in the Douro Valley, which lies east of the Morro mountain range. Climate gets drier the farther east you go, and in contrast to the coastal climate west of the mountains, the inland climate is characterized by scorching hot summers and cold winters. The best vineyards are often grown on the slopes of the Douro River, which runs east to west, or one of its tributary rivers.
Welcome, Stacey.
Hello, thanks for having me.
I love your shirt, by the way.
Thank you, mucho.
Hey, we're super excited to try a bunch of ports here. We understand you've even been there.
I have been there. I took a trip to the northern region of Portugal to visit the Vinho Verde region, and we stopped off in Porto and visited all of the port houses there and in Vila Nova de Gaia. It was a wonderful trip. I'm excited about these.
Port, as we know it today, is as much rooted in British history as it is in Portuguese. As you know from prior videos, England was always an important export market for French wines, and particularly Bordeaux. And when France and England were at war, which they often were back in the days, the English needed alternative sources for wine. Go figure. So around 1700, tariffs were lowered on Portuguese wines and spirits were added to the wine to stabilize the wine during transportation. And soon we had the burgeoning trade in what we now know today as port. And this, of course, is also why so many of the famous port producers have English names. So there are at least 4 different types of port, and they're quite different. Do you want to help our viewers kind of understand all the different ports that are out there?
If you start at the top, you can separate them into 2, ruby versus tawny. The rubies tend to be big and powerful and red fruited, black fruited. They're typically the introductory kind of styles of ports. Tawnies, the other side, break down into age statements, vintages, and they're all aged in casks and barrels. So you get a little bit of softening of color, that caramel, oaky, toasty roastiness.
Because they're being oxidized in the barrel, right?
Correct.
And then you have the third, then would be the white.
Or rosé.
So Stacey, what about vintage port? Where does that fall in?
So vintage ports are aged rubies. So they have spent more time in the bottle, but they're aging from a single vintage. And just like champagne, most ports are blends. Like these 10, 20, 30, 40, they're blends of different vintages. These are single vintages declared by the port houses.
Port can be made from up to 100 different types of grapes, but they all have to be native to the Douro region. The vineyards are often located in arid soil on steep terraced hills, which help with sun exposure and drainage. Port itself is made in several styles. There's ruby port, which is the most fruity, sweet style and, well, quite frankly, not my favorite. The tawny ports are aged in barrels and develop more nutty butterscotch flavors. These are versatile dessert wines that often last for weeks after openings. The vintage port are made from the best grapes of the best vintages and typically aged for decades in the bottle. I love opening an old port for a special occasion dinner with enough people to finish the bottle off because they typically don't last once they've been opened. There are also some white and even rosé ports, which, well, are just a little bit different, as Stacey and B will later demonstrate. All right, so B and I talked about this earlier. Like, I love port.
Mm-hmm.
But port is not a popular drink. In fact, it seems like the volumes are decreasing every year. You can get world-class port for like less than, oh, well, at $100 or certainly less than $200, you could buy some of the finest vintage ports in the world. Why is that?
So it's a big argument among port producers too. Like, what should they do? Because sweet wines are falling off in general. Fortified wines are not nearly as popular as they used to be. Sugar and the intakes of carbs and all of these things has done nothing good for fortified wines and for port in general. So it's tough when they're this good. Like, how do I convince people to drink these? I'm staying away from sugar. I don't want anything sweet. By the end of the meal, I don't want one more thing. It's very tough. Lots of port producers in the Douro are starting to make still wines as well, so that they can kind of balance out their budgets and create wines that are actually selling right now, which is kind of fascinating. They're using the same grapes and making dry wines.
That is interesting. So they're adopting.
They have to. They have to.
Well, you know what? In the meantime, though, I am really happy with the fact that I don't have to spend a fortune to get great port. And that is probably one of the few categories that I could say that about.
It's a true story.
You want to get started at this, B?
Yes.
All right. So I think we have like two distinct types here. Let's try the Tawnies together because that's simple. 10, 20, 30 versus 40 years old Tawny.
It'll be a fun comparison.
And then do you want to try the other four? So these four together and those four together?
Unless you want to start here. This one is like the house style. So this is their Veuve yellow label, for example. This is the one that always tastes the same, that is exactly like this wherever you get it. Where these vary based on year, vintages, all that stuff. So this might be fun to jump into ports and then do the flights of 4 and 3.
All right. I'm willing to go there. Let's do it.
Okay, so you don't really seem like you're dying to try this.
Here is the reason why we're trying this. I think the Graham 6 grapes is something that's really, really, really common. Really kind of a lot of places you'll see this by the glass in the restaurant or even on airplanes they'll serve this. This is the type of port that I'm not crazy about.
Okay.
And my theory here is that if this is what most people taste, you know, maybe that explains why they don't like port that much. But, you know, I feel like that's very negative of me too.
Is it not doing the best favors, right? A disservice to what really great port can be? Is it too simple for your wizened palate even? Who knows? But they got to start somewhere. It is a ruby, and it is a basic kind of introductory ruby, meant to be produced in large quantities to go everywhere. It is the white Zinfandel of Grahams, if you will. So that.
Oh, wow.
I know.
You make it sound so great. So one of the things that's just obvious is that it literally is staining the glass. 100%. It is so thick and deep red and purple. I mean, this thing is like
classic ruby port.
What do you get on the nose? We need an expert nose here. What do you get?
It definitely smells a little bit syrupy.
I get raspberry syrup, blackberry syrup.
Yeah, it's what I would expect when I picture port.
This is it?
Yeah.
And by the way, thank you so much for bringing cheese and nuts and crackers. And I think that's like the perfect thing. I think port and blue cheese is like the perfect combination.
Well, when you sent me the list of what we were trying, I was like, well, we have to have something to nosh on.
You want to give it a try?
Let's do it. Cheers.
Oh, cheers.
Definitely tastes like syrup. You could make a snow cone with this.
Oh, you know what?
Or your IHOP pancakes.
That would be really good. Or cooking with pancakes. As long as I don't have to drink it. So this is, I think, this is not bad by any means.
Hey, that's a win. You thought it was going to be not great.
Well, I don't think it's great.
It's not complex. It's a very simple, straightforward, fruity, syrupy, slightly alcoholic after dinner drink.
But it's just overly sweet and sour.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what people think of when they think of port.
Yeah.
All right. So we now have this as the base.
Right.
And we're about to try some, what I would consider pretty good ports.
All right, what's next?
Since we wanted to taste the four Tawnies together, we started with the 1977 and the 2000 Fonsecas. The vintage ports only see about 2 years of large oak vats and are then bottled. I had particularly high hopes for the 1977, which Wine Spectator awarded 100 points. Unfortunately, the cork was in really bad condition, and crumbled when I started opening the bottle. The 1968 very old single harvest port, on the other hand, is really what is referred to as Colheita port and was aged almost 50 years in oak barrels. This one will undoubtedly be different than the other vintage ports. All right. Well, 2000. Do you guys want to start there?
Let's do it.
All right, so this has probably been bottled in 2002. So it's had 23 years in the bottle, 22 years in the bottle. This is still very much reddish, purplish, ruby colored, right? This is...
Having the control next to it, you can see that it is a little bit less like purpley.
You know, this kind of looks like Meiomi Pinot Noir.
You know, it kind of does. Fascinating.
That's like a wine nerd inside joke that I'm not a part of.
Yeah, you know what? We're not even going to address
Off
that.
camera, we'll joke about that later.
Off the bat, I'm not getting as much of that syrupy smell that I was doing with the red grapes.
What do you get on the nose on this?
It smells more like wine. I know that's not very descriptive, but it does.
The fruit's there, but it's not quite syrupy for me. It's geeky wine term alert. Desiccated.
No, it's like overly overripe. That's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's give it a try. B, cheers.
Cheers. This one still tastes like syrup, though.
I'm going to make you go back to the first one, please.
Okay, okay.
Oh, don't do it, B. Don't do it. Please don't do it.
And then I want you to think about the difference in the back of your palate.
Yeah, there's a difference.
It's like textural, there's acidity, there's tannins, there's like stuff going on.
But
This
here's the
one's
thing.
syrup.
I still think this is too young. Right? This is still what B, I think what you're saying is this is still very primary. This is like still, it's still very sweet fruit. How old does vintage port need to be? And maybe does it vary on the vary about the vintage?
I think it definitely varies about the vintage, right? It depends on when all of the things that are in that glass or in that bottle come into balance. We all have awkward teenage years, so does wine, so does port. This has just hit its 20s, it's coming into its own. Maybe it hasn't figured out what it wants to be in its adulthood, but it's drinking really nicely right now. I'd want to hang out with it for a little bit.
I love your analogies.
All right, so now we're getting to a wine that's almost as old as I am. What do you expect here?
Oh man, I'm so stoked about this wine. 77, kind of a weird vintage, but really great fruit came out of this one.
So when I opened this, I was originally going to cork in a glass. The cork just disintegrated and couldn't even hold the pressure from the cork. And so we ended up decanting the 77. It'll be really interesting to see if it's still good.
At that age, it's a great idea to decant a bottle anyway, because you're going to have some sediment. There's even, with the decanting, there's a little sediment in my glass. So I don't think that was a bad choice, honestly.
You want to just go for it and give it a
Let's
try?
just do it.
All right, cheers. You know what? This is totally drinkable,
Yeah.
but I think this is a poor representation of 1977.
Yeah. I don't hate it, but there is something going on the palate that I don't think they want to be there.
Yeah, it's the oxidization. I think this was a poor cork.
How long have you had this bottle, by the way? Just out of curiosity.
I probably had this bottle for 10 years.
Okay.
So that leads to how long can you open a bottle of port and it still be good?
It totally depends on the port. And typically, Tawnies have that oxidized kind of layer of protection because they started life being oxidized in a barrel. They can last longer open. Rubies tend to not hold up as well. You want to drink those in a few days. Tawnies, you can go a few weeks.
Oh, and we will open a Tawny port around here, sip a little bit one evening, sip another, and it'll last 3 weeks. No problem.
Yeah.
But in a vintage port, and also I think, like you said, the ruby port, not that I drink ruby ports around here, but they would not last nearly as long. So I tend to Corbin port. All right, so this brings us to 1968, right?
This is fun.
So this is a Tawny style port. It's been aged in a barrel. And tell us about 1968.
So 1968, not a great year. Most port houses did not declare a year, but Taylor Fladgate has a huge backstock of wine and barrel from every vintage, and occasionally they'll just pull one of them and start doing this. So they have, I want to say it's every vintage, but there's always an exception, that they have pulled out of barrel and done these kind of single vintage bottled tawnies. So this is kind of a unique thing that really only Taylor Fladgate does.
Oh, so this taste. Oh my gosh. This
The
is the
smell
nose.
is so different.
Oh my gosh. I love this nose.
This smells like straight butterscotch
Yes.
caramel.
Yeah, I haven't even tried it yet, but I know this is going to be good. I
But you
feel
like
like
the nose on this one.
this is going to be good. Trust me. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh my gosh. So this is, for me, liquid dessert.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So good, but not so sweet that it's sappy and gross. I mean, this is just like,
I think that aged characteristic does balance it out really well.
I think if people would got to try this type of port, B, what do you think? You like it?
So at first, when it hit my mouth, I didn't know if I liked it, but then by the end, I decided I like it.
You think you can like it more with more drinking?
Yeah, probably.
Well, I think this is a great transition to our 10, 20, 30, 40-year-old tawnies, because I think those are totally accessible. You can buy them anywhere. So, all right, you want to go there next?
Can we finish this one first?
We can drink it all evening. B, we're on the home stretch.
I'm so ready to try the next 4.
In my experience, the tawny ports offer great value and great drinking experience. Today, we're comparing the 10, 20, 30, and 40-year-old ports. These are ports from different vintages that have been blended together and spent up to 4 decades in oak barrels. I can't wait to see how they compare next to each other. All right. Well, one of the things that stands out is the color, right? Like very clear. We're going from younger to older, which is redder to brown.
So we've got 10, 20, 30, and 40-year age statements. What's fun about this is the port houses basically agree that this is what 10, 20, 30, and 40 years of aging should taste like. Not necessarily that the wines have actually aged that long.
What? Come on. That seems like cheating.
It seems like cheating. However, it does mean that every time you open a 10-year, you should expect this flavor profile.
So how do we know that they didn't just do, we'll take all 5-year-old ports and we're going to make sure that they taste like 10-year?
You don't know,
Really?
but it's going to taste like 10-year.
Should we start with this one first? The 10-year?
Let's do it.
I think it's a smart call,
Should we try it?
Absolutely. It's not necessarily 10 years old.
but it's going to taste 10 years old.
Well, according to the people who market it.
And according to the regulating body of Porto.
So there's a little bit of fruit, a little bit of oxidation there. Not a lot of butterscotch or
No.
caramel or...
It's still in like the bruised apple-y kind of family. It's definitely more of the fruit side of it.
Cheers.
That was pretty good.
Yeah,
Not bad at all.
not bad at all. Dried apricots. Good
Ooh,
acidity.
yeah.
Very tingly.
I think the key there is not sappy, sweet, junky, just,
Right,
you know, it's got some texture to it. It's got some flavors.
for sure.
So now we're going to see what a 20-year-old tastes like. And evidently, well,
Should
this is what it should taste like. And Taylor Fladgate and Fonseca and some of the other, these are some of the big producers. These are easy to find in any store. I think I bought this at Total Wine. You can find this anywhere.
for sure.
This is a great nose.
So 20 tends to be the age that most port connoisseurs are like, this is the one. This is like the perfect balance. All right, now I'm dying to taste it.
Skull.
Me too.
Yahtzee.
Cheers.
That's good. That's really good.
So we found a port that you really like, huh?
Yeah, it's good.
This is like perfect when it's cold outside. Especially if you've just been outside and you just can't get warmed up and you just have a glass of this. It's like perfect.
Yeah, I'm digging this. The acidity is way more in balance than the first one, although it is still very present. I'm enjoying that a lot.
Well,
I can see why this is a favorite.
this is the 30. I can't wait to compare it. This seems a little lighter.
It very much does,
So Sandeman is like a big brand, right?
for sure.
Are they more known for like the bulk port or are they known for the fine port?
They tend to be more known for the bulk ports. They do some really fine quality things, but they produce more things in bulk.
Wait, did you already taste it?
Stacey!
You know, somebody could not wait for a cheers.
I was
But, hey,
excited. Hey, cheers.
hey, cheers. Cheers, Pete.
It's not syrupy anymore.
No,
I do like that.
it is nice. It has a lot more like dried fruit, nuts. The acidity is still like, I'm so pleased after the first flight about how much acidity is in these tawnies.
Mm-hmm.
It is so tingly that the sugar just doesn't have time to linger.
All right. Well, let's go with the grand finale here on the Tawny tasting.
Well, it's not the grand finale.
So the 40 is considerably more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Paying more than $200 for this. I presumably because there's less of it, and presumably because there's some yield loss.
Oh, for sure.
There's some-
It's evaporating every year. You're getting less and less, but concentrated. So I'm assuming the flavors are going to be like, pow.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Totally different than the 30-year-old, but this is like heavy concentrated.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like the acidity of this is there.
I still think there's acidity, but it is definitely like it's peaked and kind of fallen off on this one.
Mm-hmm.
40 and 50-year age statements tend to start bringing in some what they call rancio, kind of a meaty funkiness to it and something a little bit like animal and leathery to it.
It's just a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Very concentrated. How'd you find this?
For me, it was a little too much. I feel like if I drank the whole glass, I would get sick.
Yeah.
I like these two the best.
We
Yeah.
kind of started out saying the 20-year-old was the sweet spot.
I still think it is.
I think it is. I mean, for $55,
Great representation, good price point, for what you're getting. Yeah, there's something about 20 that's just kind of magic.
and yeah, that's where I'm coming down too. I would say the 20 and the 30. Okay. Well, cheers, Jeff. All right, so we're going to drink our favorites, right? You're drinking 20.
Yep.
You're drinking 68.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with a 30 just because I want to be different. You're going to go with...
I'm gonna do 40. Just
You're going to go with 40? All right. Well, in that case,
Ooh.
Cheers.
cheers, everyone.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
This is a very special cameo appearance from our mom, from my mom,
Yeah.
your grandmother, Fonseca. What do you think?
Til alle i Norge, skål!
Ooh.
Skål!
Cool.
Let's go.
God morgen.
Mm-hmm.
Nydelig.
Nydelig.
Mm. Well, there we go.
Love it.
So is this a cocktail tutorial?
Now that Dad's gone, let's break out with the cocktails, right?
Yeah.
So we had the white port on the table, but really didn't get to it earlier. This is like the perfect summertime cocktail.
Okay.
You are floating down the Douro. You're taking all of your port to market, right? What are you drinking? Not port on a hot summer day.
No.
So how about white port? Totally different grape varietals, meant to be chilled, and awesome with tonic. So let's make a cocktail to wrap up today.
I'm excited. Yeah, we're making one for Jeff too. We got you.
Gotta look out for your peeps. Different grape varietals, right? And this is a great summer cocktail because multiple reasons. It's delicious. Second, it's like half the alcohol or a third the alcohol of any, spirit that you're gonna do. You like Tanqueray and tonic. This is Tawny and tonic, or white port and tonic. And a lime works really good here, but I love elderflower tonic with mint.
Okay. That's good.
Right? It's like summer. Mojito option in a glass.
Yeah. Mom, you gotta try this.
Isn't that tasty?